Welcome to the Build Business Acumen podcast, where we deliver practical knowledge and powerful guidance. Here is your futuristic host, Nathaniel Schooler.
Here is a great interview I did with Peter Lavers. He tells some amazing stories here about his time at Rolls-Royce. And yeah, it was my pleasure to meet him at IBM Amplify in Las Vegas during 2017.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show. You're an IBM futurist as well, from England, same as I am. And I was quite in awe of your social media profiles, because I know you used to work for Bentley and Rolls-Royce, and you've got this fantastic picture actually in the background of one of your profiles on Twitter actually, and I just thought it looked amazing really, and I couldn't wait to meet you. And what I found really interesting is you're quite authentic online, and actually your online presence really is very similar to as you are in real life. And I know you've got some fantastic tips to share today from your experience at Rolls-Royce, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all about those. So I'll let you crack on.
Well, thanks, Dan. Yes, likewise. It was really good to meet you. I thought that was an excellent event. It is something that I absolutely aim to do personally. Is I want to be the person who hopefully everybody that I meet professionally wants to work with me and enjoys working with me. So, for example, on Twitter, I absolutely try not to just share all my own stuff. If there's anything that I come across that I learned from, because I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now, and I think it's really important that we keep learning, we stay open to what is happening, so that as we do that, I like it to share it with others, and so too many, it seems to me, people's social media presence is still kind of brochureware. Do you remember that's what happened with websites before e-commerce came along? So the last thing I want is just my social presence to be brochureware about me. I would really like it if, well, some people do come back and say, actually, I really learned something from looking at what you're sharing, but it's not all just from you. It's actually because I can see that you're learning as well. Talking about Rolls-Royce, I started there over 35 years ago now.
Wow.
And that was a pivotal time, actually. Maybe not for reasons that people might expect. For me, it was pivotal because I was a young guy, straight from school. So they sponsored me through university. So I was paid to go to university. Isn't that lovely? I was a sponsored undergraduate apprentice doing what we called a sandwich course in the UK. So I worked for 6 months a year, and then went to university for 6 months a year. Mm-hmm. And they were very good to me. But I say it was pivotal because I joined the company just at the time when the people who had been with the company for a long time were coming up to retirement. And I still see that as a real privilege. Obviously, I didn't know Henry Royce and Charles Stuart Rolls, but I worked with some lovely old guys who were taken on, though, when Henry Royce was still running Rolls-Royce company. And indeed, another guy who was a lovely guy, a South African called Jack Baker, who worked for Bentley in Cricklewood before it was taken over by Rolls-Royce. So even though, it's kind of 100 years since those companies were started, or more than 100 years, there was this connection with the founders. And I have to say, personally, some of the things, so personally, I connected with this chap called Henry Royce, he called himself a mechanic. I was training to be an engineer. I got into commerce and marketing and customer management later on in my career, but he said some things that have stayed with me, which I think are very important, and I still try to be true to in my professional career. One of the things that he said, which still inspires me, is whatsoever that is rightly done however humble is noble, is what he said. I'll just repeat that. Whatsoever is rightly done, however humble, is noble. And I have kept hold of that, even when business maybe isn't going as well as I would like it to, or when things don't turn out as you kind of hoped. It's important to keep on doing the right thing. Even if it's just a humble thing, and even if that means getting back to the person who makes an inquiry. And obviously I do a lot of work in the customer experience, the customer service world. So often there is a lot of kind of countercultural activity going on, where it's all about the numbers and people are being beaten up because of the statistics or the numbers, but actually got to keep on doing the right thing. I have a real concern anywhere where I see short-termism coming into business, and typically short-termism produces behaviour to count the numbers before their real sales or manufacture sales, things like that, where or to not count complaints as complaints. We call them something else, because we get beaten up if too many complaints come in. But actually keeping on doing the right thing is vitally important for all of us as we go through our careers. We're going to have good times and not so good times in our careers. And the thing is if you do keep on doing the right thing, then people are going to respect that. And of course, when times turn round better, they're going to come back to you. And it's like you were saying, that authentic comes through in your personality, that you didn't compromise what was the right thing to do because of short-term requirements.
I agree totally. I sent you a tweet, so it's probably your phone going off.
I think it was.
That's classic.
Silent, but it did
teach me to tweet someone while I've got them on a podcast. Classic. But yeah, it goes back to being authentic, doesn't it? And so that's really part of who you are, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I think so. And Henry Royce put it very well in saying, however humble it is, doing the right thing is a noble thing to do. And for me, so much of this whole idea of personal branding is about sticking to what you believe, to what you have found to be right, and not to allow the pressures to overwhelm you. So it's not like not facing up to pressures. There are sales pressures, there are service pressures. Businesses have to make a profit and have to run. But there's in the financial services industry, there's this thing called treating customers fairly. So I don't know whether the whole audience will understand that, but it's actually legislation in the UK, and sometimes it's called market conduct or conduct risk. But the whole underpinning of it is that financial services businesses should not need to treat customers unfairly to do well. Treating customers unfairly should not be part of your strategy. Yeah. And I absolutely concur with that. Yeah, I totally agree with that as a precept of good business. Is you should not have to treat anyone, internally or externally, unfairly in order to succeed.
Yeah. That also goes to suppliers as well, doesn't it? I think within the financial services, I think that's part of the legislation as well, isn't it?
Do you know, the point about suppliers is even bigger. It's not just in financial services. We'll talk a bit later. I've been doing customer management capability assessments with businesses all over the world in the last 17 years. I have been struck by how the best customer management organizations, not just in financial services, across lots of different sectors, the best customer management organizations are also very good customers themselves to their suppliers. So the people who treat their customers well, in general, also treat their suppliers well. John Lewis Waitrose springs to mind. I did some work with them quite a long time ago now, but it really was remarkable to me to see how not just them, other companies as well, the companies that get this customer experience angle also apply it to their suppliers, and they recognize that it is in their interests to have a strong and profitable, although, not over profitable supplier base where it's good to do business with them. Again, it just underpins about doing things right. This isn't rocket science. Coming back to the IBM futurist, which we both are, there's things are changing. So, there's so much that is happening at the moment, but actually a lot of these foundational things aren't moving. It's just about still treating customers and suppliers right through all the channels and media that are available to us, rather than just the one that we used to have. These things are still important to do.
Completely fundamental business lessons, aren't they, really, at the end of the day? So in terms of Mr. Rolls, Charles Rolls, what did you pick up from that kind of angle?
If you don't know the history of Rolls and Royce, actually Charles Rolls wasn't involved for very long. He was, I think I'm right to say, he was the first Englishman to die in a plane crash in about 1910 or something. It was quite cool. It might even have been earlier. The point about them as a pair, obviously Rolls-Royce is one of the most famous brands in the world, is that Charles Stuart Rolls was a toff. He was a car salesman, and he was very well connected in gently. He was a gentleman, as we call them in the UK, and probably had a gentleman's gentleman or a valet. And he was a salesman, and he had a showroom on Conduit Street in London, which I'm also glad to say I used that office as well when I was working there. And Henry Royce was very much, I suppose you call him lower middle class or working class. He was a mechanic who worked his way up and trained on steam engines and things like that, and was not posh in any sense. And yet, out of this partnership, of the person with the connections and the sales skills and the absolute attention to detail and quality of engineering of Henry Royce, when they came together, they produced something really special. And of course, he's still really special in terms of the quality of the products. Rolls-Royce are now under BMW ownership, Bentley are under Volkswagen ownership, but actually both brands are flourishing. That leads to the kind of the second thing that I wanted to say about Henry Royce, which is another one of his famous quotes, and there are lots. You can Google them. Mm-hmm. He said, "Strive for perfection in everything you do." I'm paraphrasing slightly. He says, "Take the best and make it better, and if it doesn't exist, then design it." And that, I'm sure you and I went through the total quality kind of craze of the 80s, and of course that then morphed into lean and agile, and all these things have their kind of roots in the old total quality, which of course came from Japanese manufacturing and American influence in helping Japan kind of get back on its feet after the war. But actually it's older than that. Henry Royce was saying this, in between the First and the Second World Wars. He was saying, improve that quality as much as you can. Now, I'm not an engineer anymore, but it's still very important for me as a business consultant that I'm helping my clients to improve the quality of the customer experience that they are delivering. And I think it's so exciting where we are at the moment. Again, linking back to the cognitive, the AI, this new world that is opening up to us. And for example, lots of auto industry leaders have been saying how the next 10 years there's going to be more change than in the previous 100 years. And I think that's absolutely true. Even though there are new channels and things are going to change fundamentally, we still need to have this quality approach of making it as good as we possibly can, because we know attention spans are decreasing. Loyalty, which used to be taken for granted, is not as firm as it used to be. Customers are not as loyal as they used to be, despite what some people might say. It's ever more important to keep that quality thinking approach to the customer experience that's being delivered through whichever channel. And of course, consistency of customer experience is also vital for that, and it plays to the same point. Why should a customer have a different experience, let alone a bad one, from the same company because they choose a different channel or approach or medium to inquire or to buy or to service their need? It's interesting for me to come from where I have. It's very important for me that I keep learning, that I keep applying these things to myself, because then hopefully that then gives me a right to help others apply them to themselves, because otherwise it won't be authentic for me, to do that.
I agree completely. I mean, it's very much the approach that we're taking. And yeah, I mean, you didn't disappoint. You're exactly the same guy as you are online, as you are face to face. And I think that's something that, is really important throughout this whole process of business branding, personal branding. And actually having the high quality, positive attitude approach, and actually systemizing it, right? Because you're really big on systemizing the customer experience, right? That's your speciality, right?
Well, it's definitely one of the things that is absolutely core to why I do what I do. By the way, and this does link, there's one other thing that I've just remembered of, which is maybe Henry Royce's even more famous quote, which is the quality will be remembered long after the price is forgotten. And and there is something about what we do where actually the quality of advice that we give will remain, and that's something that I want to leave with clients. I really don't think consultants should be trying to make their clients dependent on them. We need to be leaving them with the tools, with approaches that they can then use to improve their own performance. Best consultants engineer themselves out of jobs as quickly as possible, because actually by doing that they get more work and others come back to them, or when people move on. That's just what reminded me about. So you could say, oh, it's expensive to hire you or me, but actually with the ethos that we have, we always leave companies in a better position than when they started, which very much plays to this message of systemic customer experience management. You may ask, what on earth do you mean by that? Now, the way that I often explain it is a light bulb moment that happened with a client and myself. I won't say who it was, but it was a premium car manufacturer. It wasn't one that we've mentioned already, and it was almost as an aside. And I said to them, do you know what? If you just managed the quality of your customer experience with the same rigor as you manage the quality of your products, of your supply chain, the way in which components arrive on your production lines, the way in which parts for millions of cars arrive at dealerships to keep cars on the road. If you just manage your customer experience with the same kind of quality approach as you manage those things, you would be doing a lot better as a business. And it was like a light bulb moment. It was like, right, okay. And they kind of got this message of systemic customer management. Now, by systemic, I don't mean a business. I don't mean an IT system. I mean a business system. If you want the outcome of a great, consistent customer experience that builds loyalty and advocacy, multiple purchasing, so continuity of customer engagement, then you need to have a business system that manages those customers and their value. And so really for the last 17 years, I've been dedicated to getting that message out that the customer experience and customer value are too important to leave to chance. You don't expect cash to be in a cash machine by accident. There is there's systems, there's drivers, there's security guards, there's a whole business system behind that to make it, I'm sure you're aware, Nat, there's more and more people are being recognised in business as kind of the chief customer officer or vice president for customer experience or that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a lot of roles that are starting to appear where companies are recognising that importance of the customer experience, and they're making a person and their team responsible for joining up the customer experience across the business. And I absolutely applaud and endorse that. Now, I know some people are against that. They don't think that's a good idea. Some of them say customer experience is everyone's responsibility. So why do you just make it one person and one team's responsibility? And of course they're right. We all have a part to play. Every employee of every company has a part to play in the customer experience that is delivered. But I would counter that argument by saying, well, actually just think about a financial services organization, a bank or an insurance company. Managing risk is everyone's responsibility. Everybody in that organisation has an element of managing the financial risk that company is exposed to. That effectively is what a lot of financial services is. It's about managing risk. Either they've got your money or you've got their money, and therefore there's a risk. Does that mean you don't need a chief risk officer in an organisation because everybody's responsible for risk? Of course you do. You've got to, actually, it's mandated. You have to have a head of risk in a financial services organisation. And in the same way, yes, we all have a part to play in the customer experience, but actually the best businesses out there, the ones that can really claim to be customer centric, and there's a lot of hype around what is customer centricity and is it actually possible to do. But the ones that are close to being customer centric, they've recognized this point that I was saying, that if you want good outcomes, you've got to manage your business for those outcomes of a great customer experience and profitable customers. And I would always just emphasize that point, because again, there's a lot of hype about wowing and delighting customers, and of course that's all great, but only when you can afford to. I would just have the little bit of a pushback which says you need to delight your profitable customers. You need to manage well and appropriately your borderline customers, and certainly not overspend on them, and you need to be managing the cost to serve and the cost to acquire of unprofitable customers. And of course, delighting them at different points in their journey is something that you can do. But I could delight all customers by giving stuff away. If you give somebody something for free, they'll be delighted. You'll be broke.
yeah, of course.
And so there's always that balance to, and that effectively, that's at the heart of what this systemic approach is about. If you create a business system to manage customers within your business, then actually these things, which sometimes counter to each other, you can actually manage those trade-offs that have to be made to still perform well in business.
Peter, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear about your experiences in Rolls-Royce and with your customer experience tips and systemic approach, and I'd love to hear more. So you've been a great guest, and how do people get hold of you if they want to speak to you?
thinkcx.co.uk website address, or just at my name, at Peter Lavers at Twitter. Send me a message.
Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe, and wherever you prefer, share with your friends. And if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen.